Welcome to Buckets, Action Network's basketball betting podcast presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. I'm your host, Joe Dellera, and I'm joined by Bryan Fonseca. This is your men's Olympic basketball betting preview for the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris, France. Bryan and I are going to give you some of our best and favorite bets and talk about where we're seeing value in these Olympic Games. We also have an episode focused on women's hoops that's out right now on the Buckets WNBA podcast feed, so you can check that out as well. All right, let's get into our best bets. Bryan, who is your best bet or your favorite to win outright for the Paris Olympics?
I will preface this by saying Team USA, I think they're going to win the gold medal. But Europe to win the gold medal as a continent, plus 500 out there on the market.
I like it. Honestly, I'm with you there too. I like Europe plus 500. I think that there's a lot of value on that number. You're getting so many different teams. The best that we're seeing the US in the market is as low as minus 400. There's some minus 1,000s out there. This number seems to be a little bit crazy. Bryan, talk to me a little bit about this bet. Why do you like Europe as a continent to win?
So with Europe, you're getting almost half the field. Okay, you're getting 5 out of 12 teams. You're getting France, who's the host, who after a miserable World Cup performance, like I thought they were good enough to win the entire World Cup, and they were like the first team eliminated. They got smacked by Canada immediately. And obviously they lost to Latvia, and it was just bad. It was bad news. So they're looking to rebound from that. They're the host now. They've since added, I don't know, Victor Wembanyama. You may have heard of him. He's maybe a top 10 player in the world already. They just happen to add Victor Wembanyama, also Bilal Coulibaly, to their roster. And Bilal Coulibaly is another one of the best rookies from the NBA last season in what, is a weird situation in Washington, but Bilal Coulibaly no less. And Frank Ntilikina is also back. He was not on the World Cup roster. He's back. That, Knicks fans may roll their eyes at that, but he is a consequential defensive player. Like, he's legitimately good. Still have Nicholas Batum, Evan Fournier, Nando De Colo, Rudy Gobert, etc. You also have Serbia, who has the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic, adding him to a team that finished second in the World Cup. Micic is also going to be on this team as well, it appears. And then Greece has Giannis. Germany won the World Cup. And then Spain has the best European pedigree out of all of them. We kind of think Spain is a touch overrated. But at the same time, like, these are the teams you're getting. And the question is, do you want Europe at plus 500? Or do you want the field at plus 290? Which adds in terms of real contenders, Canada and Australia, with respect to Japan, Puerto Rico, South Sudan, Brazil, etc. But to me, I just take Europe at a much, almost double the price, plus 500 versus plus 290. And, I would short Canada and Australia in doing that. Two teams that I think are very good. But in terms of a long shot bet, which is mainly what I'm looking at for right now because of how heavily favored US is, I'm mainly looking at long shot bets. So plus 500 is a little bit of a sprinkle, not a full unit, obviously. This is something that I could definitely live with.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. I think that the price for the United States should probably be closer to minus 200, maybe minus 250. So maybe if there's an opportunity to buy into that, I still feel like I could, having a ticket at 5-1 on Europe. I know that a lot of these European teams, they're gonna get through for the most part. Whereas adding in the field, I don't feel like I think that Canada should get through, but Canada's in the group of death. Australia's also in the group of death. So there's a possibility that one of those teams doesn't really even make it through. So I'm with you. I think that the bet on Europe as a continent is the best bet right now to win the gold. There might be a time where we're able to back the United States on either an individual game basis, or we can bet them, maybe they lose a game, and then we can get a really good number on them. So be on the lookout for if we add a United States position. But I think overall, while we expect the United States to win, it's going to be a little bit of a different scenario for what we're betting on in terms of betting into the value. All right. So those are our best bets for the overall favorite round. But now we're going to dive in a little bit deeper and go group by group. These games begin on Saturday, July 27th. When we're looking at Group A is the group of death, the proverbial group of death. We have Australia, Greece, Canada, and Spain. Some of the top teams in international play for the last like decade or so. Honestly, Canada has kind of come up a little bit more in the past couple of years with the rise of like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, obviously Jamal Murray. You have even RJ Barrett on that team as well. So this is going to be a really toughly contested group. What are you looking at in this group, Bryan, for your best bet?
So I like Australia to win the group as a long shot again, going with my long shot theme at plus 600 ish is where I believe we last found it. It was 550 at one point. I like Australia there. The thing is, it's a group of death, as you mentioned. You have four teams. Three of them could advance, by the way. I think people should know three teams from a group could advance. In fact, it's likely going to happen in two groups. This is probably certainly going to be one of them. Point differential is going to be a factor. We're expecting a lot of close games here. I think the reason why Canada is a little bit too heavily favored here, because we're saying this is a group of death, and I look up and one market or out there on the market, one book has him at minus 170 to win the group, which to me is a little bit crazy. I do think that they have the highest upside out of everyone in this group, but let's actually offer some respect to some of the other teams. Greece was second in the odds, which was curious to me, but I think that's more like a Giannis play. They defend really well. They smacked Slovenia in FIBA Olympic qualifying, and they handled Croatia pretty well. Giannis is also, I mean, one of the best players in the world, transformative and all those different things. Australia's got a deep team, man. They're bringing back a lot of the guys who they won the bronze medal with in the last Olympics, their first bronze medal. After coming close, even in 2016, they lost in the semifinals. From the Olympics, you're bringing back Patty Mills, you're bringing back Josh Green, Joe Ingles, Matthew Dellavedova, Dante Exum, Jock Landale, Nick Kay, Duop Reith. You're adding Dyson Daniels. Like, this is a good team, a deep team, well balanced. They're not going to be sexy. And I think that people have to take into account you can win the group with a 2-1 record. You don't need to be 3-0. And this is likely a group where you see two teams are going to be 2-1 and two teams are going to be 1-2, and the point differential is going to matter. I think Australia is going to play everyone pretty tough. They don't necessarily need to beat Canada to win the group either. So taking all that into account, it's really just a shortening of, hey, Canada at minus 170 really for the group of death, and Australia probably deserves a little bit more respect than being plus 600 here. I think Australia could be Greece. I think they could be Spain. I think they could be Canada. So that's really what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, I think that you're 100% right. The number is just too long in really what should be a tightly contested group. We saw, obviously, Australia, they played the United States pretty well. They lost the United States 98-92 back on July 15th. Pretty tough, tightly contested game. And they've also they beat France, they beat Puerto Rico, they beat Serbia in a lot of these warm-up games, these preliminary games. These are some of the better teams that we're expecting to see like in the tournament overall. So I do think that Australia, coming into this type of matchup, I think that they're pretty well staffed, or so to speak, to match up with some of these teams as well. When we look at who's on the roster, you've got Matthew Dellavedova, you have Josh Giddey, Dante Exum, Jock Landale, Patty Mills, Duop Reith is on the team too. And I think that there's a ton of NBA talent, but also what I like is that they're so like rangy. I think that they can play a lot of different positions. They can switch really well. And this is a team that's actually played together for a long time, which is really important because it's one of the things that we don't see from some of these other teams. Obviously, the group of death, a lot of these teams have played together, for the last number of international competitions. But Canada has some interesting growing pains that they're going to be going through. Like Jamal Murray is playing for this team now. So that's going to be interesting to see how exactly they share the ball, share the court, how that impacts the team. So when we look at this Australia number at plus 600, I definitely think that there's some interest there. I also think that another play that you could look at for Australia, if you're looking at a long shot, Jacques Landale is as high as plus 700 to lead the team in scoring. And the reason I think that that's an interesting one is they have Duop Reith, obviously, as well as like another big, but they don't have a ton of bigs on this team. So I do think that that might be an angle where, the minutes are pretty stable. He's going to be in a role where like the NBA is not coming in saying like, don't play Jacques Landale too many minutes. Like he's going to get his run. And Patty Mills, he's historically been like the leading scorer for Team Australia. He's been one of the top scorers in the last couple of Olympics that Australia has been in as well. But Patty Mills is getting a little bit older. There's a little bit more guard play on this team as well. So I think that there might be a little bit of a drop off from Patty Mills. So I think at plus 700, plus 800, if you can get that for Jacques Landale to lead in scoring, I think it's a pretty good option. Considering when we look at the top of this board, it's Patty Mills, Josh Giddey, and Josh Giddey is not looked at as like a perennial scorer. So there's going to be games where maybe he only scores 5 or 6 points, dishes out maybe 10 assists, but they might not need his scoring as much. So I like Jacques Landale at a big number to lead Australia in scoring during the tournament.
Yeah, and to get into Canada real quick, because we don't love them at minus 170 and what should be the group of death. They're also the sexy team as we expected.
Yeah.
At plus 1,000, people like them to potentially win. They've already beaten Team USA recently, a different Team USA team, but did beat them last year for the bronze medal in the World Cup. This is a different Canadian team in some respect. Now you're adding Jamal Murray, you're adding Trey Lyles, you're adding Andrew Nembhard, and those are 3 like legitimately good players who are listed on their final 12 as of this recording. No Andrew Wiggins, no Kyle Alexander, no Zach Edey, because he, wants to win a Summer League championship instead of potentially a gold medal. So good luck to him in the Summer League championship. At the time we're this recording, we're going to know who wins that between the Miami Heat and the Memphis Grizzlies. No Shea Brissett. The Scrubs are not there. Thomas and Phil Scrub, not demeaning them. Those are their last names. Like this is kind of where we're at with Canada. There's just some level of turnover there, but they do return, some of the main characters, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, RJ Barrett, who, is one of the staples of this program, was here when they were trying to qualify for the Olympics last time in 2021, which they hosted in Canada and fell flat on their face. I don't even think they made it to the finals of the FIBA Olympic qualifying tournament. And Kelly Olynyk is the captain, who is a very effective international player, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, etc. So this is a good Canadian team. I just, again, like minus 170 to win a group of death is kind of crazy, while acknowledging that they should be the favorites. Australia just has and this is what I'm trying to explain to people when explaining these tournaments, because been covering international basketball, the World Cup, and now the Olympics. You have to look at this as a little bit closer to March Madness than the NBA playoffs. Even though it's not single elimination yet, there are single elimination elements, and a straight up single elimination tournament will happen after group play. This is just how it goes with FIFA, FIBA, Olympics, those type of competitions. So in factoring that in, who are the type of teams that typically beat the more talented roster? It's a team that's been together. It's a team with chemistry. It's a team that's had experience winning on some level. Australia provides that. So does Spain. I just think Australia is a little bit better overall than this Spanish roster. Spain is still one of the elite teams in terms of a program, but I still have some questions about how good they actually are in this tournament, because this is not a team with like Mark and Pau Gasol. They're being led by Willie Hernan Gomez, Usman Garuba, Juancho Hernan Gomez, Rudy Fernandez, who's still the captain at damn near 40 years old at this point. So I like Australia a little bit more in that regard.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think that Australia is the best bet in this bracket, and maybe there's an opportunity like we talked about with the United States. Maybe there's an opportunity to buy Canada, but I think it's probably going to be a little bit more on a game-to-game or individual basis. So turning to Group B, I think Group B is one of the more interesting groups in the tournament as well, given the fact that it obviously doesn't have the United States, so you don't have that overwhelming favorite. But we have a group with France, Germany, Japan, and Brazil. France is obviously the host country. You kind of expect them to have a little bit of a bump here, and we both are on some interesting angles to back France. What do you think about France for this tournament? What's your best bet for this part of the bracket, for this part of the tournament, for the Olympic Games?
There are a couple French bets I like. I don't know if I should
Yeah,
call them that. There are a couple bets on France that I like.
same.
Hopefully that wasn't offensive. Take it the wrong way. I like Evan Fournier to lead France in scoring at plus 800. We can get into some other bets later in this particular group. That's the one that I found that I circled, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me with Victor Wembanyama being minus 200 to lead this team
Yeah.
in scoring. Like, I get it, but Evan Fournier at plus 800 for me was the bet. Mainly because, and I think you were with me on this actually.
Yes.
We
100%.
were texting about this before. Yeah. So the thing with me is like Evan Fournier has led France in scoring in each of the last 5 international competitions, 5 in a row. Granted, Victor Wembanyama wasn't in any of them, but because Evan Fournier has done this, you just have to factor it in at plus 800 as some like this is again a long shot sprinkle, which is what I'm sort of targeting here because the overwhelming favorites we just mentioned, Canada, the United States, you want to look at them more so on a game to game basis, particularly the US, because Canada does have value to win the gold medal if you think they're that good. But Evan Fournier has led France in scoring in Eurobasket 2017, the World Cup in 2019, the Olympics in 2020, 2021, actually, Eurobasket in 2022, and the World Cup in 2023. He's led them in scoring in all of those competitions. This was one of the bets that I liked last time out in the World Cup. And even though France disappointed, it only took 5 games. Evan Fournier got there. So I think there's potential for him to do it again, despite the fact that Victor Wembanyama is on this team because of how they play through Evan Fournier. They rely on his shooting a ton. He is going to shoot a lot of threes. I think Wemby's going to have some big games. I think there's potential for him to have a couple of duds as well because it just happens in international play.
Yeah. Okay. I do have one follow up question for you because I like this as well. In terms of Evan Fournier, there's one market. There's one market out there now for overall top point scorer during the Olympics. Evan Fournier is listed at 25-1. Is that something that you think you might be interested in?
Sure, it's 25-1. Do I think
Yeah.
it'll happen? I'm not. I don't know. But
Yeah.
you're talking about just leading the entire like. Now, my question is this total points or points per game?
It's top point scorer. So my
I
interpretation of
think it's
that
total points.
is total points. Yeah, because when you look at the way that it's also listed, the in order of the way that the odds are, Shea is the favorite, Giannis is second, then you have Jokic. You don't then you have Victor, and then you don't see an American until you see Kevin Durant at fifth, tied with Patty Mills, Steph Curry for fifth in terms of the shortest odds at 11-1. I do think that it's really notable though to mention that in the last uh I'm looking at this. I'm looking at like a tracker basically back in terms of what has happened in the Olympics. There hasn't been an American that leads in overall scoring in the Olympics in the last like 24 years. And even dating back to
Yeah.
that, I think it gets a little bit hairy because of who was going. But look, Americans don't lead in total scoring because there's so much talent across the roster, and it kind of adds to that level of variability. So I think that you do want a foreign, like a foreign player, like somebody that's not on Team USA.
Yeah, and if it's total points, I'm actually surprised that Giannis is that high because if you don't think Greece is going to medal, that's why I asked if it's points per game because if it's total point score, if you don't think Greece is going to medal, you shouldn't take that bet. Here's the thing that people should know: if you think France is going to medal, Evan Fournier is worth a shot at 25-1. One because it's 25-1. Victor Wembanyama may also be worth a shot, as a matter of fact. Even though I'm saying like take Evan Fournier here, but that's really we're playing the numbers here. It's just I don't understand like how this is priced that way. But France or anybody, if you get to a semifinal game and lose, you still have to play for the bronze medal.
Yeah.
It means if you get within the top 4 spaces, you're playing the maximum amount of games in the Olympics, which is 6, which means your total point score doesn't have to come from just whoever is playing in the gold medal game and winds up one of the top 2 spots. Because if you finish 3rd or 4th, you're also going to play 6 games because you have the 3 group play games. Then you have your quarterfinals, your semifinals, and you have your bronze medal game. It's the same reason why in the World Cup, the teams who went to at least the quarterfinals got to play 8 times as opposed to teams that finished between 19 and 9 and 32. They ranked, outside of the quarterfinals. They only got to play 5 games each because they didn't get but so far. So this is important to know in terms of total point scoring and betting and things of that nature, that it doesn't have to come from the team that wins the gold or wins the silver.
Yeah, I would think my one guess for a reason why like Giannis is like that is because Giannis is just like a 30-point machine in
Sure. Yeah.
international play, and like there really aren't a lot of guys that do that. Like most of these players are not putting up 30 like with like nobody's even thinking about it. We don't have Luka obviously this year, so it's like Giannis is that guy where it's just like give me the ball, I'm gonna go get 30 because nobody's calling fouls. Like we're good. So
Yeah, I just don't like, because if I think Greece is going to lose in the quarters and Greece is in the group of death,
yes.
I
It's
don't like
tough.
Giannis
It's
there.
tough.
I don't like the
I
Giannis
don't
bet
like the
there.
bet either, but I think that's why he's probably priced where he is. For
Yeah, if
me,
it's actually points per game, I like, okay, I can hear you
then you
out.
can get there.
But
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
So for me, I agree with you. I like Fournier to lead France in scoring at 8-1. But my favorite bet, honestly, I think it might be my favorite bet of the entire Olympics right now is I think this is like wildly off priced. France to medal is plus 175 at a book out there.
mm.
And I've seen this as low as like minus 165, minus 175. To me, this is an insane number. I don't understand this. Like this is bonkers. Like you're getting like a little bit of home court. Like it's weird to say home court, but like they're the host nation. Like they should feel comfortable. They've been able to practice. It's all like at home for them. This team's also loaded. Obviously you have Evan Fournier. You have it's weird to lead with them, but you have Victor Wembanyama. You have Rudy Gobert. You have Nick Batum, Frank Ntilikina, Bilal Coulibaly, Nanu De Colo. Like this team is good, and when we look at what's going on for me anyway, for France, like they're coming in a group that they 100%, I have no question that they're going to get through this group. Whether maybe they drop a game to Germany, but I still think that that's highly unlikely given the fact that I think that they have so much talent, and specifically matching up against Germany, I think that they have like a great matchup because they have so much interior defense. And the difference in FIBA rules here for the Olympics is you can just park in the paint. And Rudy Gobert, like you've got Rudy Gobert just parked in the paint, defending the rim. You have Victor able to like be a floater out there, which is nuts. So like just the length, the athleticism, what he brings to the table, to me, plus 175 for them to win a medal. Like we don't need them to win gold. We don't need them to win silver. They could win bronze. So it's like even if their path somehow leads them up to maybe having to go against the United States in like an earlier round, in terms of the single elimination or like in terms of the elimination style play, that could obviously hurt them a little bit. But at the same time, plus 175 to me is just so off market for a team that has arguably, a top, like, what would you want to say Victor is? A top 5, top 10 player in the tournament, right? Like at a minimum, right? And then you have Rudy Gobert. So you have the two guys that just came last year, 1-2 in Defensive Player of the Year. They're both incredibly long. And there's nobody that really has a great matchup for Victor, maybe besides the United States, with the ability to throw like a Joel or an Anthony Davis or a Bam Adebayo at him. Aside from that, like maybe a little bit of Giannis, but like I don't think they even see Giannis. So to me, plus 175 for France to medal is my favorite bet of the entire tournament. I think that this is a must play bet. I think it's wildly mispriced, and it should definitely be, in my opinion, a minus number.
And I'm going to be with you on this one, because in terms of the medal bets, this is probably, because you're not going to get, again, if you're not getting good value on Team USA to win the gold, you're not getting good value on them the medal potentially.
To like
And then from
minus
there,
100,000.
yeah, and then from there, it's like you either love Canada or France, or you're just playing long shots for the most part. And I like France to medal also. They're home. I think this is if you want to use a game to game reference that we use on buckets sometimes, this is a bounce back spot for France,
Yeah.
because they were so horrible in the World Cup in 2023. Now with reinforcements and Victor Wembanyama, and hopefully he stays healthy the whole tournament, literally knock on wood that is the case. Bilal Coulibaly is going to be on this team as well. Like, yeah, I think because, and this is part of it, you mentioned it, the group, they're in the weakest group maybe in this tournament. Germany is good. Germany's really good. They're going to advance. They won the World Cup. They're legit. But Brazil, respect to them. Love how they play. They're tough. Marcelinho Huertas, Iago dos Santos. I was talking them up the entire FIBA World Cup qualifiers, but or Olympic qualifiers. But they beat Latvia and Latvia, and now they're getting into this bracket where I just think Germany and France should take care of them. Wouldn't surprise me if they beat Germany, but France should at least take care of them. And then you have Japan, who I think personally, with respect to Rui Hachimura and Yuta Watanabe, this is the weakest team in the entire tournament.
Yeah, I'm with you in terms of like where Japan's at. I think it's interesting though, because like this Japanese team is, I would say, better than some of the other ones that they've put out there because they have both Rui and Yuta.
For sure.
So like it's been something that they haven't really had actually, and they obviously have Josh Hawkinson as well. Just rebounding king over there for them.
People need to learn like the FIBA rules. Listen. As a Puerto Rican, I'm very happy that Maya Hollingshed is on the Puerto Rican national team. I'm not sure how we made that happen, but I'm very happy that she's on our Puerto Rican national team because she instantly became one of the best players and, has the FIBA capabilities of citizenship and what have you. But hey, man, in FIBA, you see things like this all the time. You know how many black dudes that play for Montenegro?
Kendrick Perry.
Kendrick Perry's not the first. I think Omar Cook did as well. St. John's legend. This happens in FIBA and international play. So yes, Josh Hawkinson, straight up white man, playing for Japan in the Olympics.
Hey, more power to him. But look, that group in particular, I think, is one of the easier ones to predict in terms of what we think is going to happen. And it's definitely a little bit of a pivot to our next group, which is obviously Group C, which has the United States in it. We have Serbia, South Sudan, Puerto Rico, and the United States. South Sudan just made some waves the other day. They almost beat Team USA. They only lost by one. There was arguably a foul in the last 8 seconds, maybe that the United States committed, and the ref swallowed the whistle over there a little bit. But before I get into your best bet for this group, are you a little bit concerned about Team USA based on that performance against South Sudan?
I mean, this is progress from the last Olympic, the showcases beforehand, because they lost to Nigeria and Australia, straight up lost to them before that, and then lost to France in group play. And then it was like, oh boy, are they even going to win the gold medal? And they barely beat France in the gold medal game. That was a close game. Concern is I don't think South Sudan, I kind of think South Sudan had their chance. And South Sudan is a really good team, first of all. Carlick Jones has had a cup of coffee in the NBA. Wenyan Gabriel is really good. Royal Ivey is somebody who I think is going to be an NBA head coach at some point. He's been an assistant for a while, former point guard who played for many years. Nuni Omat, who's been in the Puerto Rican League. So I've been following him a little bit more also. He was once a Nets Exhibit 10 when I was covering the team. So I remember him from there. And they cut him pretty quickly, but he had a chance at the NBA at one point. South Sudan is a legit program. Luol Deng has built them to a legit program. They're better than people think. They have high highs and low lows because they're inconsistent. This is one of their high highs. That being said, I don't think in the rematch this is going to be the exact same game. I think Team USA is going to probably play them differently. And I also think, can we get into before we give out, because we're obviously going to do the betting portion of this, I don't think Joel Embiid should be starting on his team. I just don't. I don't think it makes a ton of sense that Joel Embiid is starting on Team USA just
Anthony
stylistically
Davis seems to fit so much better.
Yes, yeah, and the Anthony Davis Bam Adebayo tandem
they've been
minutes
awesome.
They've looked really good, which I'm kind of is that something you feel like you want to go to the bench with? Why don't you just start with that look? Kind of big, and you can go to Joel Embiid later, have him help run the second unit with, I don't know, Anthony Edwards or whatever the case may be. I'm a little bit confused at the rotations. They're still figuring this out. We'll see where they ultimately land, but I don't like Team USA, just starting Joel Embiid. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for the team that they have for the guys that they have on this roster.
Plus, like we've seen Joel Embiid just absolutely cook like some of those bad units. So start him on the second unit on international play would be crazy. So I think that would totally be notable. But I think that besides that, maybe part of it has to do with the fact that we haven't seen Kevin Durant yet, and maybe it's a little bit tougher to get Kevin Durant on the floor at the same because Kevin Durant's going to start. There's like not really a doubt in my mind that he's going to start, right? So I guess the concern would be if you don't start Joel, then you kind of lose the ability to go to that combo of Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo off the bench, because you're going to have like a starting lineup of like Curry, LeBron, Durant, Embiid. I think it gets a little bit big, or so to speak. It's a little bit
Curry, LeBron, Durant. You could do Curry, LeBron, Durant, Bam, and Anthony Davis.
Guess so, yeah.
Like,
you could run LeBron
go
at
big.
the two. Like LeBron at the two.
Like you could do that if you want. Like your team is talented enough, good enough, whatever. You're best in the world, and all this shit. People say, all right, start that. I think that is your death lineup. I think if you're Team USA, LeBron, Curry, Durant, Bam, and Anthony Davis, because Bam works because he doesn't need the ball. You don't ever need to, yes, he can stretch out from three now,
shooting threes,
and he can do some things. Yeah, he could do some things on the inside, but he actually makes sense with anybody because of the defense. And Anthony Davis obviously is a pick and roll partner. LeBron obviously, has been playing with him for years. Steph Curry has been the best shooter in the world for 15, maybe longer than that, actually, years at this point. And Kevin Durant's the best scorer that Team USA maybe has had consistently on this international level. You know what I mean? Like, I would probably start that lineup: Curry, LeBron, Durant, Bam, and Anthony Davis. I'm dead serious about this.
I think that this Team USA I think they're really so incredibly good. But I guess my one concern with them is we haven't totally seen the pecking order in terms of what is your real rotation going to be if things get tough. And we kind of got a glimpse of that in the South Sudan game, because at the end of the game, it was when they were trying to mount this comeback, it was Curry and it was LeBron. And they were like, we are just going to put the team on our back and we're going to go do this. So obviously Anthony Edwards has kind of made a lot of waves saying I'm the number one option. It's funny. There's all these videos coming out of just him. He's like, I don't care what you do. I'm going to be better than you with this, which is awesome. It's a great mentality. At the same time, this doesn't mean that Steve Kerr is going to play him in that same role, right? So Anthony Edwards is actually, I think, at least the last I checked, he's either 1 or 2 in terms of leading Team USA in scoring so far. I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that Kevin Durant has not played. I would imagine that Anthony Edwards' minutes kind of get slashed to a degree, even though he's been great. It's Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant's one of the all-time, I think he's actually the all-time leading scorer in international play at this point, right? Did he pass Carmelo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Kevin Durant's going to play. To me, I think that opens up a little bit of opportunity here. So I'm going to leapfrog you and go first this round in terms of my best bet. But I like Steph Curry to lead Team USA in scoring at plus 350. This is a total points bet. Curry to me is the best bet for this market. It was 6-1 a month ago. It's kind of gotten bet down. It was hard. It's hard to give this out a month ago. There's just no limits on it. But look, one guy that doesn't have any limits is Curry. Curry's got unlimited range, doesn't rely on foul baiting to get his points, which I think is critically important here. We've seen now in a couple of these games where guys are saying well, how was I not fouled? You see them throwing the ball up in the air, thinking that they're catching somebody's arm. It's that didn't happen. You're not going to get the flop calls. Curry doesn't need any of that. And I think that that's incredibly important because, number one, we know he's a starter, and that's not going to change unless he gets hurt. Whether Kevin Durant comes back or not, Curry's not coming out of the starting lineup. And nobody on Team USA can do exactly what he does. He stretches the floor to no degree. The 3-point line on international play is shorter. So you're letting Steph Curry basically shoot on a kiddie hoop from 3-point range. That's the way that he is, right? So the fact that he can stand at the NBA line and shoot threes still and make those are still good shots for him, it becomes a little bit harder, I think, for opponents to cover him, because you're well, how far out do I need to be? Where do I cover him? How do I cover him? And then you still have Steve Kerr running a lot of Golden State set plays for the Team USA team. So Curry's had like a really easy learning curve. And when things come down to crunch time, or if Team USA needs a bucket, you know what they're going to do. They're going to Steve Kerr, LeBron picks up everything, obviously, in terms of playmaking, play script, whatever. LeBron's not a guy that's saying like, I need to take the last shot. And I think that because of that, it's going to allow Steph Curry to be the leading scorer on Team USA. Plus 350, I know he's the favorite. You know me, like I don't always love betting on favorites, but I think that his role is way too secure, and he has the potential for those monster ceiling games. And even though like a couple of these games early, like maybe the games against like no offense, maybe games against like Puerto Rico or even South Sudan might not be super close, his ability to have like blow up games of like a 30-point game in international play, 35-point game is a really big deal. And I like Curry to lead Team USA in scoring at plus 350.
There are a couple bets that had just popped into the market this morning that we're recording that I was learning of as you were getting into why Steph Curry. And I'm tailing that because I haven't been able to figure out and really hammer down who I think is going to lead this team in scoring. It feels like Curry versus Durant at this point, because I think LeBron's going to be more of a distributor. So a couple of markets that opened up before I get into the bet that I really liked. Speaking of Team USA, their assists leader has dropped in one particular book. Tyrese Halliburton, the favorite at plus 400, which
crazy,
no, eject.
Insane.
Absolutely
Don't bet that.
Not. No,
he's going to play maybe. What do you think? 5 minutes a game? Maybe.
Yeah, like he's not going to play that. He's not going to play nearly enough to get that. But LeBron at plus 450 is really interesting to me. I would even say that's mispriced. Like maybe by the time this is out, this is probably switch. LeBron to lead the team in assists, because I think that's the role he's going to play. I think he's going to have games where it's like 15-7-7 or 15-5-8, or whatever the case may be. Like, I think you're going to see some of that. Curry, by the way, is plus 600, and then Drew Holiday at plus 600, which is weird to me.
Yeah, but Drew plays a lot.
I think that's one that I liked that immediately popped up. Leading scorer for Puerto Rico, unsurprisingly, Jose Alvarado minus 175, which immediately I turned to Tremont Waters. Like, where is he? And he's plus 105, because it's going to be one of those two guys. It's going to be one of those two. I guarantee you right now. Jose is a little bit more consistent with the shooting, but Tremont Waters is probably worth.
But you have to figure Puerto Rico might only get 3 games. So it's even more.
Hopefully we get a fourth. But we're probably not gonna. Like, listen. USA, Serbia, the point differential. They have to beat South Sudan. That's gonna be tough. South Sudan took them to overtime in the World Cup. But the bet that I really like from this group, before we finalize like the actual group analysis, Serbia to win the group at plus 900. I think plus 1,000 may be out there. Actually, but we'll see. Serbia to win the group is basically another long shot play sprinkle, because this happened last time in the Olympics, where France just catches the United States. France beat them. France won the group. USA ended up winning the gold medal. So this isn't saying, oh, USA isn't going to win the gold medal. In fact, if you want USA to win the gold medal and you want to bet it and you don't like minus 400 like we don't, you should be rooting for Serbia to beat them in group. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, okay, now we can get USA at a better number. I don't think it's going to be plus money, but I do think it's going to be much shorter than minus 400.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a great bet.
The bet. Yeah. And the bet basically here is you're taking Serbia on the money line, essentially at plus 400, at plus 900 to beat Team USA. You're taking Serbia on the money line to beat Team USA at plus 900 because you expect Serbia to beat South Sudan and Puerto Rico.
And we have a line out actually for that game right now against the United States. And it's not plus 900, I'll tell you that. Serbia is plus 16.5. They're an underdog, but they're actually, well, depending on where you can grab the money line, maybe you can grab a little bit of a higher number. So it depends. But either way, I think that that might get bet down. Plus 16.5 is a pretty hefty number to grab in that game as well. I think the other thing you have to consider is that Jokic has like I don't know how much they really truly showed their A game in that showcase against the
Right.
Team USA.
Yeah. I feel the
Jokic
same way.
didn't really play like the second half. Like they kind of let that game just like, all right, see ya. Like this Serbian team has been dynamic throughout international play. They've been a team that nobody really wants to face over the past couple of years. I can definitely get there at plus 900 just to see, if they have an opportunity to win. Obviously, Team USA could also lose to another team in this group. I think it's probably a little unlikely, but maybe
Yes.
maybe the Puerto Rican national team can give them a run for their money. What do you think, Bryan?
I listen. You have no idea, like how I would. I don't know what I'd do. Honestly, I don't know what I'd do. I'd be scared about what I'd do if that were to happen. It's not. It's most likely not going to. But hey, I'm sure Team USA were very large favorites in 2004. This is a better team. This is a better team than the one in 2004, though, for sure. But Jose Alvarado, Tremont Waters, like there's the thing about the Puerto Rican national team, real quick, like because they're playing South Sudan, like South Sudan as a more athletic team, is rangy and all those different things, but they're also more raw. And what Puerto Rico excels in is, man, they can get hot. They feed off emotion. They shoot the hell out of the ball. This is why, listen, this is why we like them at plus 470 to win their tournament. And we nailed that because we were like, hey, one, they're home, which, doesn't always matter. But two, the shooting and the ignite ability. Like they feed off of emotion more than most other teams in this tournament. That's going to be for better or for worse, and probably for better and for worse. But Jose Alvarado and Tremont Waters, like they're emotional players, and this is just how we are, man. This is all I gotta say. It's how we are. So we'll see what happens. They can get hot and make it a little dicey for somebody in this group, but ultimately, the winner of Puerto Rico, South Sudan is going to have the chance to advance, and it's still going to be an uphill battle because of the group of death point differential, not going to be by a lot. And then you have Group B where, like, if Brazil hangs in there with Germany, then
They're
you kind of need Puerto Rico or South Sudan to hang in there with USA or Serbia.
Yeah. So it's definitely going to be a fun Olympics. We're going to obviously have a lot more coverage for you. Just to recap our best bets, Bryan and I both like Europe to be the winner at plus 500. In Group A, we both like Australia as a little bit of a long shot at plus 600. For Group B, Bryan likes Evan Fournier to lead France in scoring at plus 800. I love France to medal at plus 175. And then for Group C, Bryan has Serbia to win the group at plus 900. And I have Steph Curry to lead Team USA in scoring at plus 350. And we also mentioned LeBron James to lead the team in assists at plus 450. That'll do it for this episode of Buckets presented by BetMGM. Be sure to download the Action Network app and don't forget to check out the Buckets WNBA podcast feed for our episode on the women's Olympic teams. For Bryan Fonseca, I'm Joe Dellera. Thanks for listening. And as Matt Moore loves to say, let's get buckets.